Hi, I'm Campbell Such. This is Mindbite Thursday, your weekly dose of the human edge in technology. This week I was going to cover off hiring from the perspective of a student fresh out of tertiary institution, tertiary training, university, technical institute or the like. And as I started to get my thoughts together and look into it, some information popped up from the New Zealand Statistics Department around the incremental benefit in terms of income of having a degree, a bachelor's degree, going forward over the median wage. They also had information around the total level of student debt, number of debtors, and the average. Total New Zealand student debt, $16 billion. Total number of people in New Zealand with student debt, over 700,000 out of a population of around 5 million. Average student debt, 22,630 New Zealand dollars. To put that into perspective, in the US, the total student debt is $1.5 trillion, which seems like a massive number until you do the relative comparison of the two populations. New Zealand around 5, the US something over 300 million. Do the maths, and the New Zealand number goes up to just under $1 trillion. Now that's still quite a bit less than the US, but right up there in terms of that ballpark. And then looking at the incremental benefits, it occurred to me that what's the financial catch-up? In other words, if you went to work, if you compared yourself to someone who went to work on the day that you started university and looked at what they earned, in other words, what you didn't earn through the median and on the median wage, and then added on top of that your student debt that you come out with, how long would it take you to catch up going forward with those incremental gains that are on the Statistics New Zealand Department website? So I ran the numbers, and it's quite staggering, the difference. So if you look at those numbers, the New Zealand median wage, something just under $53,000, on top of that the $22,600, and you come out to just over $180,000 worth of earnings over those 3 years of a bachelor's degree. That assumes you don't take longer than 3 years, of course. And then if you look at the incremental earnings over and above someone that earned the median wage going forward, how long would it take you to catch up? The numbers run for 13 years, and if you run the numbers for 13 years, after 13 years, you'll be at just under 90% caught up of the loss of earnings plus the student debt that other person that started at their job at the same time you started your university degree. Then, if you look at that person, they never got a wage rise other than cost of living. What if they earned 1% more than the cost of living, that median wage going forward each year? And what about 2%? And if you run those numbers, it's even more staggering, and here's the graph. And what that shows is that at 1% after 13 years, you're less than 2/3 of caught up. In other words, 2/3 of that total loss of earnings plus the student debt. And if it's 2%, it's less than 40%, which is way less than half. Wow, less than half caught up on that. So from a financial perspective, university is a challenge. Well, I'd ask you, what conclusions do you draw? What would you tell someone who's about to go to university what they should do? Seems to me that the difference is when you go to work, you get experience. What do we want with people when we hire them into our businesses? We want experience. What does university give you? It gives you knowledge. Knowledge to experience is like reading about riding a bike versus riding a bike. You've actually got to do it before you know it. And we want people with experience. So I'd encourage you to think carefully about it for yourself if you're considering going to university or to a tertiary institution. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What you might want to think about is how can you get some experience on top of that, and don't necessarily think that it's a financial saviour for you going forward, because it's going to take you a long time to catch up with your peers who started work on the median wage when you started university. Something to think about. Certainly got me thinking. Pretty staggering numbers. That's Campbell Such. Mindbite Thursday for this week. Over and out. See ya.